As the world says goodbye to an icon, Nelson Mandela. I'm Mike Walter in Washington, D.C.
And I'm Anand Naidoo in Johannesburg. You know, Mike, there have been people working for several years now to preserve the legacy of Nelson Mandela. The Nelson Mandela Foundation is in a suburb in northern Johannesburg. It houses his personal items and his papers. I was able to visit the center and talk with its chief researcher, Vern Harris. See in front of us here some letters in the center here. What are those letters?
Well, Madiba wrote many letters from prison. This particular one is to his daughter, and he's explaining the family tree going way back in history.
And that's in his handwriting?
That's his own handwriting. Most of these documents are in his own handwriting, actually.
So as we go through here, what are we seeing?
Well, this is his early life. You'll see the earliest image of him over there. This was when he was at school in Hilltown as a teenager.
Okay, and that goes through, it looks like that's when he was a lawyer, right?
Exactly. This is now in Johannesburg. He's now part of the ANC and rising quite quickly in terms of leadership.
Okay, and as we go down?
We move into the prison years now. And actually here you'll see the document that sent him to prison. And he went to prison for 5 years. You can see he was supposed to be released in 1967, but it was crossed out in life. Behind us now, as we walk past, we have a representation of one of his Robben Island cells. Exact proportions of the cell from which he wrote many of these letters that we've been talking about. And then, of course, he comes out of prison. There you can see another example. That is a letter that was smuggled off Robben Island. And you can see he's writing very small so that he can get as much information as possible. There's his normal handwriting over there. And then, of course, the presidential years.
These are the realities he had to face as president in South Africa.
Yeah, and of course, even after he retired, he continued to work in many areas, HIV/AIDS being one of the main ones. This is the representation. That's his briefcase from the presidential years.
Okay, and as we go on here, we're coming to his office.
He last walked out of those doors in 2010. And he then subsequently donated everything in the office to us. So this is exactly as it looked when he last used it.
How many years did he use this office for?
About 8 years, yeah. And we've put images here of him using the physical space. But what's important, I think, is that so many of these items are ones selected by him. You see the one of President Obama meeting him right behind his chair. Behind me, if you look over here, that is a book, and it's a book about Muhammad Ali. And for the last 3 or 4 years, if he had any breaks in between appointments, that book would get put on his desk. He loved it. Just a few examples. From 1976 until 1990, every single year, Madiba had one of these as a desk calendar, right?
He's very meticulous. Got consultation with attorney there, Ismail Ayub, visited by Mandela, 9:15 to 12:45 p.m.
Very meticulous. In 1998, he sat down to write a sequel to Long Walk to Freedom. And he never finished it.
And there it is, chapter 1. He wrote it all in longhand.
Yeah. Well, what would happen is he would write in longhand, and then his assistant, personal assistant, would type it up. So there are some which are both in his own hand, plus the typed versions. There are some with amendments made. But this was the first chapter.
And no doubt that will become a place that will be visited by many scholars, many ordinary South Africans, people from around the world in the years to come.
Anand, what's great about it is you get every chapter of his life. What was the most striking for you?
You know, you're quite right. You're literally right there, every chapter of his life. It was very moving. You know, one felt that you were part of history being made over there. I mean, to be able to look at that manuscript, for instance, of his autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom, to touch those pages which he wrote in his hand, there it was, to look at his diaries. He was very meticulous in making these entries on his diaries, to look at his passport, the first passport that was given to him, which I was told he filled up very quickly, that was given to him after he was released from prison. All those things. We looked at the awards that he received, including the Nobel Awards that he received. That was in another room at the center there. Like I said, very moving, very touching.
I want to get your thoughts before you take off on this book about Muhammad Ali, because I think the parallels between these two men, both incredibly charismatic and both fighters in a sense.
Well, that's right. I mean, I'm not sure whether you know this, but Nelson Mandela was a keen boxer in his young years, and he had visions of being a professional boxer at one time. So there was already some kind of relationship there between him and Muhammad Ali. And as Vern Harris told us during that visit to the center there, this is what Nelson Mandela spent all his downtime doing, poring through that huge book that sat on a table in his office. Every time he had a free moment, they moved it up to his desk, and he pored through that.